Some will say that no, it happened first in Chorachandpur. Some others will say no, it started in Imphal. But my understanding is it was near simultaneous. A lot of it was to do with certain wrong videos which went viral.
Hacking people, raping the women, burning the homes. It's shocking that even in this day and age, that kind of atrocity takes place.
We cannot possibly be there on every square inch of the ground. We are there at areas which we think are volatile, vulnerable. These incidents take place where we are not there. So yes, what you said is absolutely right. These things are quite horrific.
Why was it so easy for them to walk in and loot the arms?
Probably the people who were supposed to be guarding the weapons got overwhelmed by the sheer numbers. But yes, the other way of looking at it is while all these weapons were being looted, were any shots fired at them? No.
Why?
Which is something which is of concern to all of us.
2 battalions of the Assam Rifles were to be replaced by the CRPF. How do you function when the government in a state doesn't want you to function?
We were not allowing mobs to undertake the activities in the violent manner in which they were doing. That is what was not liked.
What is required to be done in that state to bring the situation back to normalcy?
The political leadership in the state has to reach out to everyone. It is very difficult for the security forces now to get after the people and collect all these weapons, 3,000, 4,000 which are still outside. It is for the youth to get convinced that it is not the way forward.
Namaste, Jai Hind. You're watching or listening to another edition of the ANI podcast with Smita Prakash. My guest today is Lieutenant General PC Nair, former Director General of Assam Rifles. Assam Rifles is a paramilitary force in charge of border security, counter-insurgency and maintaining law and order in the northeast and Jammu and Kashmir. General Nair retired in July 2024. In the past year, during the strife in Manipur, several allegations were made by one section of the Manipuri population about the conduct of the Assam Rifles 9, 22 and 37, while yet another group wanted them to stay. According to some counts, over 200 people have died in Manipur, thousands injured and as many displaced due to inter-community riots that began in May 2023. My colleague Ajit Dubey joins me in this podcast. Thank you, sir, for being part of the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So, firstly, congratulations on superannuation, fabulous career, several decades, and in hotspots of the country. So, it must have been a very interesting career that you've led.
That's quite true.
But let's begin with the hot seat that you had, occupying a position which was so much in the limelight. So let me talk about if you could tell me something about the current situation in Manipur and whether, after a year of the strife, do you think that we are in any position where the communities are willing to sit across the table and discuss this and come to some kind of an arrangement where the violence is not part of anything that is happening in the state?
Thank you. That's a very good question to begin with. Well, if you talk of this current situation, and the start point, of course, is the 3rd of May last year. From then to now, the violence levels have greatly decreased. But what has not actually decreased is the state of mind of the people. It's got so corrupted, so caustic. And that will take some time to heal, the psychological aspects. Yes, the other things which have gone down, no more additional weapons are being looted. And no more is there a case where villages are being attacked. The last one, of course, happened in Jiribam early July, but nothing after that. So surely the violence levels have gone down. But like I said, there is the second part of your question was as to how do we address this. While the security forces can prevent the levels of violence, but the larger role has to be played by the people, by the government, by the civil society organization, by the youth, and by the various people who are going around with arms. It is for them to meet up and realize that this is not the way forward.
So you spoke about looting of arms just now. That is something which shocked many of us. That why was it so easy for them to walk in and loot the arms? I mean, we've heard of this happening in Naxal areas, but the Naxals are like trained literally like armed forces training. You know, almost similar kind of training that happens out there. Were these people trained so well as to attack and loot the armory?
I won't say trained to attack and loot. We probably need to put it a little differently. The numbers in which they came, they were very large numbers that they came in. And probably the people who were supposed to be guarding the weapons got overwhelmed by the sheer numbers. But yes, the other way of looking at it is while all these weapons were being looted, were any shots fired at them? No. And that didn't happen.
Why?
Which is something which is of concern to all of us.
So, what is the protocol? They are allowed to be to fire on people who are looting arms, right?
Of course, that's the standard protocol with any security forces, not necessarily.
I get that, but there are at times I've heard that they're not allowed to retaliate because they are civilians. There are certain protocols that come into place. They are
Or
put aside.
in this case, they wanted to be looted.
Yeah.
I will not be able to comment on that whether it was by design.
Huh.
But the fact is that it has happened. But of those weapons, quite a few of them have come back also. So while 5,000 plus weapons went today, there are just about 3,600 as per the official estimate. Some of them have come back. But yes, it continues to be a weaponized society, and that's a major area of concern for us.
And sir, before we move further on the situation, like this been going on for more than a year now. You were the DG Assam Rifles at the time when all these incidents started. How did they start? Like we know the reservation issue and other issues were the trigger for it, but how did it start? What actually happened on ground when all this started, and what was the response of the security forces?
Yes, you would be aware that when all this happened on the 3rd of May, in the morning, there was these marches that were carried out by the tribes in the hills, and not just the Kukis, even the Nagas did it that day, and that finished by the middle of the day. But thereafter, now it's a question as to where exactly did it start first. That's the moot point. That is what gets asked very often. It was near simultaneous. Some will say that no, it happened first in Churachandpur. Some others will say no, it started in Imphal. But my understanding is it was near simultaneous, and a lot of it was to do with certain wrong videos which went viral.
Information.
Information which
When you say wrong, you mean fake, right?
fake videos which in no way were related to what was happening in Manipur. But the narrative just went around that these are things that are happening in Manipur, and that's what led the situation to go up the escalatory ladder.
Because you've done several press conferences during that period on propaganda war and on fake video that happened. You did say, I think it was in 2024, you said, and I quote, despite facing wrongful propaganda from individuals and groups with vested interest, we continued tireless efforts in not only curbing violence professionally, but also maintaining Manipur's integrity. So you said individuals and groups. Why were you specifying about, I mean, or separating them? You felt there were individuals with vested interests?
Absolutely. There were people who were doing it at individual level for reasons best known to them, but also there were groups.
You identified them?
Yes,
Those who were doing that?
yes, they were identified, and necessary action were taken against them. Some of them were handed over to the police as well. But what happened beyond that, I'll not be able to comment because we are not aware of that. But yes, what I said, I stand by that.
So, sir, what you is it that when the violence started, there were already groups and individuals who were ready for, who were preparing for this violence to happen in advance with all these videos and their in their arsenal?
Let it put it this way. You just alluded to the fact that there was just a trigger that was needed. This simmering discontentment which was there has been there for quite some time. It has been building up. There were arms with one particular community, and they went around with arms, showcased their arms. But thereafter, when it went violent, just remember it was not the arms that were used. It was just setting of fire of houses. Houses were set afire in both the places, in areas belong to both the communities. So that is where it all started. Looting of houses, burning of houses, and the next step to that was looting of weapons. As a counter to a certain faction feeling that they don't have adequate weapons, but then the numbers that got looted were huge.
Okay.
Can you explain to us, when you say communities, explain how powerful each community is, the Meiteis, the Kukis, what is the role of the Nagas, what is the role of the other communities out here, how armed was each community, how aware was each community of the threat from the other?
So let me start with the demographics. Let me put that into perspective. Meiteis, of course, are the largest community. They are about 53-54% of the population. The Nagas are about 18 to 19% of the population, while the Kukis are 13 to 14%. Then you have the Pangals, or the Muslims. They are anything between 6 to 8, and the rest 2% are all others, Gorkhas and others. So that is the broad demographic composition. In terms of which all communities were armed, I will say all the three communities have their respective groups. The Nagas, the oldest running insurgency of the NACN in Nagaland and Manipur, and you know all the top leaders of the NACN are from, particularly the IM, are all from Ukhrul in Manipur. So,
But they're no longer staying there, right? The leadership of the Nagas?
the leadership is not there, but the NACN IM
The
faction
cadres.
cadres are still there. They are
Okay.
there in Manipur.
And they are allowed to carry weapons, sir?
They are not supposed to be carrying weapons, but they do carry weapons.
They do carry
That's a different point. So it began with them. Then
Okay, let's go community by
yeah,
community.
I'm doing it community twice. So Nagas.
So the Nagas,
the first to take up arms.
So does the Naga community have faith in the IM faction giving them protection against the others?
Yes,
They do.
They do.
They have more faith in them than in the security forces?
In fact, that's true with all the three communities.
Okay.
They believe.
So that's Nagas, right? What is their objection, or what is their fight with the Meiteis and the Kukis?
There is a dispute between Nagas and Kukis also in the 90s, if you go back in time, 91 to 93. It went on till 96. After that, the scales of violence reduced. And mind you, the number of people killed, the number of people displaced was much more then. But of course, you didn't have social media, you didn't have awareness. So I've lived through that. I was a company commander, so I've seen those scales of violence which were there. So at that point of time, it was between the Nagas and Kukis. The Nagas felt that Kukis have got into their land. There are people who have come from outside. They wanted to get away from their lands. And that's how it started. So when this started, the Kukis initially were not armed. The Kukis also picked arms. They have common ethnic people across in Myanmar. So it was easy for them to get armed. So the reason why the Kukis got armed were initially to fight the Nagas. Then, of course, in the Meiteis, you had the UNLF, which is the oldest group amongst the Meiteis. It was raised in 1964. That's the year I was born. And then, of course, you had the other big faction which came up in 1982, if I remember correct, the PLA. So these factions are still alive. They are still against the government. While there is a certain group of the UNLF Pambi as it is called, which came over ground now very recently, 6 months back.
What role did the Meiteis play when the Kukis and Nagas used to fight?
They
didn't get involved.
They didn't interfere in that at all.
Okay, so for decades, they were not part of the fight, which was basically, I think 30 years now, Kuki-Naga fights?
96 it ended.
Yeah,
So
almost 30 years.
30 years.
Almost 30 years. Okay, right. So now that is the Meitei faction. And the Kukis, you're saying, they get their arms from across the border.
Everyone does. All the three factions.
All the three factions. So what was the current fight about, as Ajit was asking? What was the reason for the current fight?
See, you need to again go back a little in time. My understanding is all this started in 2015, in the month of August, when the Manipur State Assembly passed 3 bills. One of them was related to land. Now, when those bills were passed, it was otherwise passed unanimously, they said. But the Kuki MLAs and the Naga MLAs felt that their MLAs they weren't taken on board. Because if you see out of the 60 seats that are there, 40 are with them, with the Meiteis, and 10 each with the Nagas and Kukis. So they felt when these three bills were passed, in some way the Meiteis were trying to gain control over land in the hills. As you are aware, 90% of the land is in hills,
Yeah.
which belongs to the Nagas and Kukis. And they have total right over there. The Meiteis cannot buy land there, while the Kukis and Nagas can buy land in the valley. That is the basic discontentment on land. Second is, of course, the reservation, of which the court passed the order sometimes in just before May.
May 2023, you're talking.
May 23. I'm talking about May 23. Just before that is when the High Court passed that order to have a look at this demand of the Meiteis of reservations for them and SC.
That was the immediate factor.
Status. Yeah, that was. If the court had probably just said they need to look into it, probably this would not have happened. It's my understanding. But the Honorable Court gave a direction that it should be done in the next 15 days. So that get the alarm bells.
It wasn't enough time to prepare the population.
Yeah.
Now, you're obviously not part of the administration. You're security forces at that time. How do you see this? You have to prepare for what's coming, right? Were you aware or were you tipped off that this could cause disruption?
Yes, we were aware. In fact, we were ready. On the 3rd of May also, when this happened, we were ready. Our columns were ready. We just wanted the state government requisition to come. And no sooner did it come, straight away about 40 columns of ours got deployed. And in a matter of 24 hours, about 80-90 columns got deployed. Of the
I
Assam
have
Rifles.
to talk about that horrific video that everybody saw.
July 23.
July 23 is when it got released.
Yeah, it got released in July 23.
But it was obviously...
must have happened.
It happened earlier. It happened probably in May. It happened.
But was the administration, were people aware that because that's what everybody says, that people in the state knew that there is a video like this. Political parties knew that there's a video like this. It was released at an opportune time. And that caused, it spread like wildfire after that. And it shook this country, just like today the Kolkata rape incident has shaken the country. That shook the country as to what is happening. Were you aware that a video like this was...
No, we were not aware. We were surely aware that there are atrocities happening, and wherever we were witness to that, we as security forces prevented that. In fact, that is one of the reasons why we get the groups condemn us. Since we stop the violence that happens, we prevent a certain community from attacking the other. So when their aim doesn't succeed, they start blaming us. That is the genesis of, I'm sure that is one of the questions you have for me.
Yeah. The barbaric manner of attacking, whether it was earlier, years ago, decades ago, the Naga clashes which used to happen, or even till today, hacking people, raping the women, burning the homes. It's shocking that even in this day and age, that kind of atrocity takes place at a mass level, not a sporadic incident. This is what one can't figure out, or the rest of the country wonders, that despite such a large presence of security forces, why does it continue to happen?
I need to clarify this because I've been asked this umpteen times. Despite so much security forces being there, how can you not prevent? We cannot possibly be there on every square inch of the ground. We are there at areas which we think are volatile, vulnerable, or there is potential of violence. We constantly update this input and keep changing our deployment. But despite that, when we do that, so do the civilians. The normal people also come to know as to where we are. Generally, these incidents take place where we are not there. So yes, what you said is absolutely right. These things are quite horrific. It should not be happening in the current times. But take my word for it that we have arrested a lot of violence.
Sir, you said a lot of violence was stopped because of presence of security forces, but this violence was large scale. So if I ask you, in percentage terms, how much of violence Assam Rifles could manage to stop, and because of lack of troops or lack of You couldn't be everywhere. So how much violence, like 50%, 60% places you were there, or like if
We can only put a rough estimate. I can tell you if today statistics, I think as per the state government statistics, there are 226 people who have died in this violence as of now. Probably this would have been 4 to 5 times.
Okay.
Surely. Of that, I have no doubt because we've seen how our troops have moved around. The point which again many forget is from 3rd of May our troops are on ground till now. I mean we have had monsoon, winter, summers, everything, but our men are still there out in the open. We need
Isn't
to.
there a rotation that happens?
No, it is the same battalion which is there. The same battalions which are there.
There was this talk that the Manipur government wanted the Assam Rifles to be replaced, and one report I have is that 2 battalions of the CRPF was supposed to. 2 battalions of the Assam Rifles were to be replaced by the CRPF. That is what they wanted. But what happened? How do you function when the government in a state doesn't want you to function there?
Let me, ma'am, put this in a manner that you would understand it better. Firstly, you're aware we are there for the last 190 years. Next year we're celebrating 190th
Correct.
year. Our existence in some way has been along with the Northeast. We have grown along with the Northeast. Wherever our campuses have been, many townships have come up around that. Aizwal, Kohima, some parts of Imphal to be more specific. Wherever our campuses were there, that's where the cities have developed. So our troops associate themselves with the Northeast a lot. And the experience that we have is phenomenal. So if we have been the net security providers for the people of the Northeast for the last 190 years, would anything change from 3rd of May? I don't think. Today you have a situation where all of us who were there then, 3rd of May last year, beginning from the army chief, the army commander, the corps commander, the IG South, the DG Assam Rifles, all of us have changed. Do you see Assam Rifles or for that matter Indian Army doing anything different from what happened then? No. So was the case earlier also. It is just that we were condemned because we were not allowing the mobs to undertake the activities in the violent manner in which they were doing. That is what was not liked. So this call for remove Assam Rifles. But let me tell you, the very people who are asking for removal of Assam Rifles are also the people who praise Assam Rifles. That hasn't come in the media as much. You would know that Manipur has faced 2 situations of flood in the last 4 months. We've saved close to 10,000 lives. And in those days when those floods were happening, the same people who are condemning us will going gaga over us.
So
Please
you've
read the
done a
media.
tour of duty in Kashmir also, no? You know that happens even in Kashmir.
So-
So that is kind of a given.
The same people are also in some way at some point also praising us.
Yeah.
They know for a fact that the only force which can restore normalcy here is Assam Rifles because of our permanent presence there. I am from the Indian Army, but let me candidly admit that even when the Indian Army troops come, they come from different places. Even in the peak violent period in Manipur, there are many columns which came from different parts of Assam. And these are troops who have never operated, so they take time to understand. Whereas Assam Rifles has this advantage of being there.
But that this time people say that it was probably a disadvantage because you've been there, as you said, Assam Rifles has been there for 190 years. So there were tribal loyalties
Not
that
at all.
people had. And that's why they wouldn't take action against mobs because their loyalties came into. Is that there?
No, that's fiction. That's another thing which I again keep telling in my interviews.
news?
No, not fake news, ma'am. You know do you know we have 28% of our troops are from the Northeast. From Assam Rifles, 28% are from the Northeast. And from them, a large section, more than 50%, are from Manipur.
So that's what it is, no?
No. Now, let me go a step further. Of those people from Manipur, we have Kukis and Meiteis both. If we were seen being partial to a particular community, you think our troops would have allowed that to happen? Or would they have just sat quietly? Today, we don't have a single case in any of the battalions which are there in Manipur where the Kukis and Meiteis in the same battalion have gone against each other. Whereas that is not the case with the rest of the state. Their minds are so polarized. But today, why is it not happening in our battalions? We should have had a situation where there should have been riots. There should have been people not returning from leave. Nothing of that sort has happened.
But there were allegations that, at least made by the Meiteis, that there was discrimination because it is a Kuki-heavy force.
No, it's not a log. On the contrary, of the people who are there from Manipur, if I can put a rough estimate, it's almost 65% of the troops from Manipur are Meiteis that we have.
But you didn't have any problems like
You had in police, you knew what happened in the police.
yeah, we knew what happened to the police, but did any of your officers, senior from the battalions, the COs, did they talk to the troops that
They are
was
doing
there
that on the daily basis.
no
Every day they're giving them a
to
correct
address
picture.
this issue of loyalties that we are very
Yes,
being-
yes, yes. Of course, it works on the minds of the people. When you're doing a job, yet you're being criticized, it surely does work on their mind. But beginning
because
from the coming
we
of
saw a lot of videos where police and Assam Rifle troops were coming in, with weapons before each other, and police had some issues that Assam Rifles is not allowing them to function properly as per their requirements.
No, there are two ways of looking at it. One is those videos, only part of the videos are shown, not the full. There have been, we are operating in a conflict zone where people are fighting against each other. We are trying to arrest that violence. Now there is the police, the state police, and there is us, the central
Paramilitary.
forces who are there. Now, when they come in with certain information. While we are there, we are already there. We have probably better information there. So when the police comes at times, it has happened that they wanted to go to a certain place, and we try to stop them to tell them that it is not fair because, and we were not trying to protect. Now, constantly the refrain is that we are pro-cookies, but there have been so many incidences where the Meiteis have not wanted us to leave the place and go. And it happened in Thobal. If you look at, do you know when the Meiteis went away from More? Close to 500 of them just ran into Myanmar. We got them all back. Similarly, some 600, 700 Meiteis from Churachandpur, we gave them a safe passage into Imphal. So at all those places, we've ensured that no harm comes to them.
Explain the Myanmar situation now.
The Myanmar situation is very volatile from the 1st of February 2021.
And sir, how is it that they landed up in Myanmar and then you had to get
Yeah.
them back from there?
Yeah, because it's a Kuki-dominated place, More, as you were aware. So when the houses got burnt, many of the Meitei houses got burnt, these people ran off to Myanmar, they were kept safely there.
By
And
the
they-
troops there? By the Myanmar is
The locals.
The
The
locals.
locals and some of their security forces also.
Why do they take them in? Is there ethnic convergence? Is there something that they have sympathies to them? How do people just walk into another country, walk out from another country like that?
It's a case where there are certain atrocities happening here. So people on the other side are helping them. Similar things happening when you have people coming from Myanmar into Manipur also, or Mizoram for that matter. They're being provided shelter. They may or may not be of the same ethnic stock, but purely on humanitarian grounds, this is a given.
And the
This
security
happens.
forces allow this movement.
No, again, that is another misunderstanding which is there. Security forces are not there on every square inch of the ground. It's an open border. Not even porous, it's an open border. You can just walk across. So when your houses are being burnt, what do? You just run across.
It's
So
not marked also.
No, there are border pillars.
Huh.
But if there's one border pillar, the next border
half
pillar
a
is
mile
not seen.
away.
You can't
Okay.
make out the alignment of the border.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why didn't we fence it, or why didn't, because we don't see them as aggressors? Is
No,
that
you,
the reason?
you must be aware of the free move regime that exists
Oh yeah. Okay. Correct.
between us and Myanmar.
Myanmar. Okay. So now they go across and they come back when they want to, if they want to, right? But that's also the source of weapons which go up and
True.
down.
True.
Huh.
So they have these centuries-old linkages, cultural linkages, societal linkages, fraternal linkages, which is why this free move regime was established in the first place. This boundary, as the people there see it, was drawn artificial. It is an artificial boundary as they see it. Happened after the Treaty of Yandabu in 1826. Then once India gained independence, somewhere in the 60s, we formalized this boundary, but yet we decided to continue with this free
People
movement
to
of
people
people to
movement.
people contact,
Yeah.
because we didn't want to cut them off. But in the process, what happened is all these militant groups started moving across, carrying smuggling of weapons, ammunition, and then of course the drugs. So these are reasons now. Increasingly, this is posing a major
Is
threat
there a
to
rethink about this porous border?
Yes, the
and
government just announced that it is planning to shut this free move regime,
okay,
and alongside create a smart fence and physical fence at places.
okay,
Okay.
huh?
So not the entire border, sir?
Entire border will not be physically fenced.
Okay.
Many reasons. You cannot totally cut off the people. There will be regulated entry-exit points.
Okay.
If you can have a regulated entry-exit point with Pakistan, a hostile
Yeah.
neighbor like Pakistan, why not
Nepal
with a friendly
and-
country like this? So there are about 830 villages on the Indian side on the 1643 kilometers of border that exists. So I'm sure the government is working out. We have recommended certain places, 45, 46 places from where these entries exit can be regulated. So government must be working these out.
So, as the job that you held as DG Assam Rifles, at what point of time did you feel that this wasn't just a normal skirmish which was happening? This wasn't just a normal riot which was happening or intertribal warfare which was happening. That this had taken on a bigger,
I
bigger
think
event.
within the first 24 hours, we realized it's not a.
Oh.
Within the first 20, given the scales of violence, and I'm an old hand at Manipur. I've been.
Yeah.
This is my third time there. So the moment we saw, when we mapped it and saw where all the scales of violence that was happening, we realized it's not like any normal situation, and that is why the Indian Army columns also came within a matter of 48 hours, which wouldn't have been the case. Looked dispassionately, one would have felt, okay, if we have adequate troops, maybe we can call in some more, but extra columns came in within no time.
Was there lack of intel information that it's not a spark, that it's going to be large scale and it's going to be deep?
Not intel failure, like I told you at the very beginning, that we were prepared, quite prepared for it. The day this High Court order came, we knew something is going to happen, but surely where we went wrong was we didn't kind of realize that it will happen on such a large
Enormous.
scale and so widespread.
On September 1st, 2023, you said, and I quote, "The situation we are facing in Manipur is unprecedented. We've never faced anything of this kind," unquote. Now, you're a person who has done Sri Lanka during the LTT movement, right?
No, I wasn't
You
in Sri Lanka, ma'am.
You weren't in...
I was in Sri Lanka.
You weren't in Sri Lanka, okay. You've done Kashmir.
I've done Kashmir.
Okay, so you've been in Kashmir, you've seen that. How do you relate to this now, between what happened in Manipur, the insurgency, the whatever you want to term it as, and what you saw in Kashmir? How was it different?
Kashmir and the Northeast are very different cups of tea. We cannot. Sometimes many of our thinkers go wrong in templating. It's not the same thing. It's very different. Pakistan purely sponsors that. It is controlled by Pakistan largely in Kashmir, as you know. But here there are many things in the Northeast. It's got a lot to do with the non-development of the region, the porous border that is there, multiple actors, multiple ethnicities, religion, so many things are there. And of course, a foreign country which is just across, and beyond that is another country which is hostile to us on our northern borders. There is a certain supply chain of weapons, drugs, which is coming from that side.
From China, you are saying?
Of course,
Okay.
you have Yunnan province. Alongside that, in Myanmar, you have the province of Shan, Shan state, where much of the trouble happens.
Okay.
Poppy cultivation, for example. ma'am,
It's
I'm
open
sure.
cultivation,
Yeah,
right?
I would like to highlight here. You must be aware, the Taliban, from the time it's gained power, it's come down very harshly on the poppy cultivation. If I need to give statistics, in 22 May is when they announced that no more poppy cultivation. Between 22 and 23, they've scaled down the poppy cultivation by 95%. So
In Afghanistan.
in Afghanistan. So the supply chain has got disrupted. So where has it moved? It has moved to the so-called Golden Triangle and Myanmar in particular. Again, if I had to
And
give
this golden triangle includes, sir,
it includes the area which is Mekong
Crescent,
Delta.
no?
Golden Crescent is that side, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran. Here it is
Golden Triangle.
triangle.
But lately the government has started calling it Death Triangle also.
So this death
So
triangle includes
is Myanmar, Thailand, and Laos.
Laos.
Yeah, these three countries.
And this supply chain starts from Myanmarese areas.
No, it's grown in all these three countries.
Okay.
This region, it's a region where the boundaries intersect.
Okay.
So this region, Golden Triangle, which we talk of, the land belongs to all these three countries, but largely in Myanmar.
Okay.
And from the time the poppy cultivation has gone down there, Myanmar has again emerged as the top poppy cultivator in the world.
And what happens? How does India get involved in this? What happens in India?
What happens is
It's a trade route?
it gets illegally smuggled into India, like the borders are open.
Okay.
So that is where I'm telling you it's an area of concern. Again, I'd like to give you some statistics of what contraband we have caught in the last 3 years. Beginning this year, I think as of this month, security forces in the northeast have caught contraband worth 1,500 crores. Last year it was 1,700 crores. Year previous to that was 800 crores. Previous to that was 1,400 crores. So over the last 5 years itself, about 5,800 crores worth of contraband, of which 90% by value is drugs, which is coming in. And this includes heroin. It also includes synthetic drugs, methamphetamine, yaba tablets, such like.
Where were they headed? Was they for the domestic market?
Domestic
or to
market
Europe
and also,
America?
also abroad. There are multiple routes through which it comes. It enters India, it also enters Bangladesh. From Bangladesh, it goes through the coastal route. It comes towards Guwahati, then enters mainland India, and from India again it gets.
To what extent was this also a reason for the discontentment that there was a crackdown on them? Because there were reports which said, and by people in the government who said that because we've been cracking down on the drug trade, that's why this has been done also.
My poppy is actually cultivated in all the hill regions of Manipur. Not just Manipur, it's also there in Nagaland, it's also there in Mizoram. It's everywhere.
But
So-
illegally.
Illegally.
For medicinal or illegally? Okay.
Illegally. It is also used for medicinal purposes, like you're saying. But the profit margins are very huge. That is why. And we should not only look at the state of Manipur. You have to,
Yeah.
that is why I'm constantly referring that you have to look at Myanmar, how things are happening there. So you have this disturbed situation that is there. You also have a case where within Myanmar in the last, again, 2 years, there has been a 75% spurt in the land that is being covered by poppy cultivation. If I had to give you figures, it is almost 47,000 hectares now.
Okay.
47,000 hectares is, this is about 25% leap from 2 years back, what it existed in Myanmar. Though about 10 years back, it was almost 53,000 hectares. But this is an area of concern if it keeps increasing like this. And again, if I have to break this down further, where exactly in Myanmar? 80% of these 47,000 acres is in the Shan state bordering China. The next is Chin state, where it's about 10%. Chin state is the one which borders Mizoram and borders Myanmar. And the third is, of course, Kachin state, which partly borders Arunachal and China. So that's about 6%. So that is the distribution of this 47,000 hectares which I was talking of.
And the returns must be so high.
It's
It must be
phenomenal.
more than any other product that they could be growing, any
Absolutely,
other crop that they could
absolutely.
be growing. The returns are phenomenal,
These
right?
state-
Otherwise, it was paddy cultivation, right? There mostly
Mostly paddy.
paddy.
Mostly
And what
paddy.
I've heard is that between the paddy fields, they grow this poppy. So it's not visible clearly. Like in Afghanistan, when they grow poppy,
It's only poppy.
it's only poppy. So you can see it and it's easy to
It's
cut.
both, ma'am. There are certain places where the administration or security forces are not able to reach. So in those regions, you have fields, but in other places, like you're saying, there are small patches also.
So that is hard to detect, and that's why there was also this, the Manipur mothers against drugs and things like that. Is that still on in Manipur? Is there awareness? The church was involved to a large extent on this de-addiction programs and things like that. Has that petered down, or are they still playing a role?
Women traditionally have played a very important role in Manipur, whether it is the Mirapaibis amongst the Meiteis or similar organizations in the Nagas and Kukis as well. They have always played a very prominent role. So going back in time, in the 80s, Manipur was then known as the drug and HIV capital.
Yeah. 90s and yeah,
In the
correct.
late 80s and 90s, it was known as the HIV capital, and that is when the women took it onto themselves to stop the youth from indulging in this. And then it gained a lot of traction. They were successful to a very great extent. So today, Manipur is not the largest
So
consumer
the
of drugs.
consumption may not happen so much, but it is a trade route which is the worrying
Yes,
thing. And
yes.
along with the drug trade route also becomes illicit arms and things like that, because they always go hand in hand wherever they work. And then you're talking about currency trade and things like that, which also happens. I'm sure that that's also, Hawala operators working and things.
And sir, you were saying that weapons and a lot of other things, arms for all these India-based insurgent groups, they are coming from the Chinese side. So
Yunnan.
Yunnan. So at what level are they involved in the crisis in this entire region, and like what is the aim they are looking at?
See, you need to study Myanmar a little more. Now, this state which I was referring to, Shan, is one of the most underdeveloped states of Myanmar. It so happens that the people there, at least bordering China, there the currency recognized is the Chinese currency,
Okay.
and the language spoken is Han. Han language is spoken there. You would have heard of all these cyber frauds, etc., that are happening. A large setup of that is there. Then you have these illegal weapons. You have drugs. Everything that can be wrong is there. While it may not have the official patronage of the Chinese government, but surely there are some big sharks involved in this who have some kind of a support from the government, by virtue of which they are able to carry on all their trade. There is a militant group called the Wa State Group, which has a force of about 25,000 armed people. They have artillery guns. They have small-time tanks.
Huh?
Yes, and they fight the Myanmar army.
Okay.
Tanks?
Yeah, small ones they have.
Okay. First time I'm hearing of this, that about an insurgency which has tanks. I haven't heard of this. I think maybe to some extent with the leftovers in Afghanistan that used to happen. But tanks is something which
Small
is...
ones they have, which we call as armed personal carriers. They have armor protection. They have.
Yeah, armored vehicles.
Armored vehicles,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, but let me come back to the issue that was happening in Manipur. In one of your press briefings in September last year, you said the worst is over in Manipur and the state is heading towards better times. But in spite of that, this was a couple of months after the insurgency. It didn't. There were sporadic incidents that kept happening, and of course, it gets fueled by political parties getting involved in the thing. So tensions don't simmer down. So what gave you the confidence in September last year that things were coming, and then what led to the continuing of the
There
movement?
were 2-3 things then that happened. I just spoke of the figure. 226 have died so far, official figures. Close to 180 have died till then.
September 23.
September 20, 180, 185, thereabouts. So what I essentially meant is that kind of violence, that scale of violence where mobs would go to attack others' villages and burn the villages, kill the people there, is not going to happen. That was one. Then we as security forces, Assam Rifle, Indian Army, along with the other central forces, we were constantly at back channels. We are trying to get these civil society organizations involved. And we got a sense that they were interested. But then 1 or 2 incidents would happen and we would go back to square one. Some beheaded body would be found. In retaliation, the other community would do the same.
Yeah.
Then those numbers would increase. But yes, the levels are still down. Like I started my interview by saying that these levels have gone down. That is what I was alluding to, that those numbers of people may not get killed. And I had faith in our back channel talks that we are having with many of these groups. But unfortunately, that didn't work out.
Okay.
But I've still not lost hope. I am an eternal optimist. Having lived through the Naga violence, at that point of time, also people would write off Manipur. And
Yeah.
then you had HIV capital. I spoke of people, large number of youth into drugs and all that. So then also we had heard this is a state which is just going to fragment within no time. But thereafter, just before, let's say, beginning of last year, we saw things like Durand Cup being held there, Femina Miss India being held there.
Yeah.
This, in my wildest dream as a young officer in Manipur, I would have never dreamt of.
I think even people used to say that about Nagaland. People have said that about Kashmir. And then you had music concerts, you have nightlife happening in Srinagar. Well, I don't want to put nazar on any of that. But hopefully things will settle down. Shall we move to...
Sir, like we have talked about the situation, ongoing situation. What is the like you are saying you're being optimist about the entire situation. How do you think, like, what is required to be done in that state to bring the situation back to normalcy, like removing reservation or not going ahead with the court order? What can be the solution there? What is it that gives you hope?
I feel there are things that have to be done on multiple fronts. To begin with, it's the political leadership in the state has to reach out to everyone. I'm talking of now all the communities who exist there. They have to reach out to people beyond their ethnic groups to try and sound reconciliatory. Next is for the youth themselves. It is very difficult for the security forces now to get after the people and collect all these weapons, 3,000, 4,000, which are still outside. It is for the youth to get convinced that it is not the way forward. They have to surrender these weapons. There have to be some kind of incentives for that to be announced, which probably will help that happen. Then the civil society organizations, along with the women's organizations, they have to, the biggest sufferers in this violence have been the women. It doesn't come out as much in the open, and it so happens that the women bodies are very powerful. They have to think beyond these false narratives that are going. There has to be a control on the false videos, false narratives that are in plenty. Today you have publication of the valley-based people which looks at things only from their perspective. On a parallel track, the cookies, the people in the hills have also started their own publication, not in print, but in electronic form. They have their own papers where they deride the Meiteis. Now all this has to stop. They have to look beyond all these marginal gains or short-sighted gains that they're having. So they have to play a role. Then it is the armed people also who are going around with arms. I'm now talking of militant groups, including some of them who are in suspension of operations, some of them who are in a ceasefire mode. It is for them to understand that this is not the way forward. And of course, security forces will be enablers in anything that they do. And ma'am, since you spoke of that July video which came out, it so happened at that time we had spoken to both the communities, and they had agreed to meet at a place which was different from Manipur, where they were to meet, and we were facilitating that meet as Assam Rifles. But just 2 days before that meeting could happen, this video went viral.
And that was that.
That was the...
And sir, with so much of information warfare going through these social media apps, WhatsApp and all other applications that are used, did you, as DG of the force, did you ever feel the need for an indigenous social media platform to be able to handle all this, to tackle all this information?
We were doing it on two fronts. While the army through the corps and the command would give out clarifications, even I was doing it in a large measure through many of my interviews to the media. I was telling them as to what exactly is happening. It so happened the security advisor who's there, Mr. Kuldeep Singh, he was also given this charter of clarifying regularly to the media. It was happening for a certain period of time, then it stopped. But I think he's doing that again.
But so you just mentioned something. Is it something that we are really looking at, that the hill people have their own media, their own version of things. The plains people have their own media, their own version of things. Are we really looking at a situation where they could split up? The state could split up into two?
That is the demand as of now, but I
Yeah.
don't think that should happen. I mean,
Huh.
this problem will fester for some time. But if we allow the state to split up, then what stops from other states also? There are
Is there a
demands.
division so deep now that reconciliation is impossible?
At face value, yes. When you look at it, when you look at the pronouncements that people make, you feel, yes, there is no going back. But I feel there is a way for. We need to have patience. We need to be talking to people. We need to make announcements at whatever levels they are to sound reconciliatory and give them assurances. You have to look after all the damage that has happened. To people, houses have got burnt. We have to provide succor to all of them.
And is the discontent palpable against mainland India for having ignored or not taken them seriously, or mainland India in the sense that the media doesn't focus on them, or that the government, whether state or central, has not taken their needs into account?
I'll tackle this on two ways. First, this word which you used, mainland India, is not liked by people there. I mean, I've been there for 20, 24 years now. So this feeling often comes to my mind when everyone says mainland India. Why? How different are they? Why are they not mainland? Just because there is a certain chicken neck which separates them from rest of the country, that doesn't make them any lesser mainland
Sure.
than anybody else. But insofar as the other part, as to whether they feel that they have been neglected, yes, there is a feeling there, which is why I'm saying there have to be announcements made to suggest to them, yes, you're as much part of us, and we'll do everything that it takes to get the state back on track.
So, sir, we were talking about role of Assam Rifles with the what happens in case of a full like we have seen limited conflict happening on the Arunachal side, in Ladakh, east, northern and northeastern borders. So, what will be the role of what role does Assam Rifles play in this conflict, sir, with the Chinese?
And that's a very interesting question that you asked, and I would want to clarify and bring it to the notice of your viewers that this is a role of Assam Rifles which is hardly known to people. To put things in context, almost 75% of the Assam Rifle troops get involved if there is a war on the northern borders. So we are quite well assimilated with the Indian Army. Every year we undertake exercises with them. We do war games, any other uh, thing related to war on the northern borders. We are there with the Indian Army. So we are there both in the defensive plans as also in the offensive plans of the Indian Army. And let's go back in time, 1962. At that time, we had large number of battalions. We had fewer battalions, about 22 battalions then. But of those 22 battalions, about 18 of them were on the Chinese border. And when I speak of Chinese border, they were right ahead, even ahead of the Indian Army. They were in isolated pockets. They were acting as protective patrols, stay behind parties, as laying ambushes. So there are many places where the Assam Rifle soldiers have fought last man, last round.
So must have got engaged when the standoff started with
Yes,
the president.
in fact, when Galwan happened also, there was a large number of Assam Rifle troops which were inducted into Arunachal Pradesh, into Sikkim.
Okay.
What do you mean by last man, last round?
They continue fighting on the post till they are totally overrun, till there is nobody left to fight. And they're in small, small pockets, platoon, there are sections, 8 men, 10 men, 20 men. They fought till the very end.
And now you have your
Not much of it has got glorified, but we have those historical records with us.
and you now also have the Assam Rifles women battalions going in Kashmir.
No, not women battalions. We have women as part of our main battalions, and they're doing exactly the same job as their male counterparts. They're going for patrolling, ambushes, long-range patrolling, and cordon and search, raids, everything.
Okay.
You'll be surprised to know they go for 7 days, 10 days at a stretch out from their base. They're walking with the men. Everything that the men are doing, they're doing.
Where are they trained?
They're trained in our center, regimental center.
in your resume.
We've also this year raised a women's polo team, all girls from Manipur, incidentally all Meiteis, all Meitei girls, and you'll be surprised to know this is the first all women's polo team amongst any uniformed service all over the world. Nowhere in the world do you have anything like this.
Interesting.
We've just raised them this year, and you'll see how they
They'll be into
perform.
competitive.
Yeah, very soon.
Okay.
Starting from this season, you'll see them
Interesting.
in prominence.
How do you see the because you've done so many postings in the Northeast, how do you see the security situation in Bangladesh? 5 of our states border Bangladesh. How is this going to impact on how we look at it? Are we ready for just in case an influx that could happen? Our borders are, you can't really seal the borders as you're aware also. So what is going to happen in those 5 states? Are they on alert there?
It's a very good question, ma'am. Again, most of our people in our country don't know that this is the fifth longest land border anywhere in the world. 4,100 almost kilometers is the border that we share with them. Much of it, almost 50%, more than 50%, almost 60% of that is with West Bengal though.
1,800
No,
or
it's
something.
2,000
right?
something.
Okay,
2,200 is with West Bengal.
Okay.
But the other parts, yes, there is a constant fear that people may come from there. Of course, there have been incidents where the Hindus have been targeted. The present government there has been making reconciliatory statements, which I think is good. And I don't foresee a case where there'll be so many refugees running and coming here, unless they are that specifically targeted. I think the government is doing a fairly good job. So is the Bangladesh army there. I think they're doing a good job.
Okay.
They would be able to erase the violence. Surely I don't see the numbers like what we're having in Mizoram coming from Myanmar. Not that kind.
What is happening in Mizoram? What do you
You would be aware close to 40,000 refugees have come from Myanmar into Mizoram. From the time this the dispensation there is changed and the increased fighting that is happening opposite Mizoram. So they're all as refugees in the state.
How severe is the threat for the other countries in that region? Is Myanmar looking at it? How are the others? Is Bhutan looking at it? What are they all thinking about it? What do you think? That they fearful? Say because there's talk of American involvement in this. Are they fearful of Chinese involvement in this entire crisis, which is happening in Bangladesh?
There are many narrations as to who all are involved. That time will tell who actually was involved. But I don't think there is so much concern of refugees, because that is where you started the question.
Yeah.
In terms of refugees coming into India, I don't see that happening. Yes, there may be violence levels that may go up, but surely should not be of that much concern to us. And Bangladesh border in any case is better. It is better fenced. It is better guarded. There are more number of troops on the Bangladesh border than there on the Myanmar border. So I don't think it's a crisis that we should be facing.
But sir, we have seen in recent times, like when Sheikh Hasina had to run, there were a lot of attacks happening on her party members. Then we heard a lot of, we've seen a lot of news reports about Hindu temples being attacked. But is that centralized near the capital of Bangladesh, or we are seeing that kind of violence against party and party members of Sheikh Hasina and Hindus in the border areas also?
There are two things in this. One is the radical elements. There are these two major radical groups there, Jamaat-e-Islami, JEI, and JMB. Now, these have been traditionally anti-Indian. So they kind of galvanized the situation. They encashed on the situation when the students and the youth raised their voices. They took this as a sucker to target, it's my reading, the temples and some of the Hindu businessmen. So that has happened. But fortunately, like I said earlier also, my feeling is and my observation is that the security forces there are trying to restore calm, which is a good thing. And radicalism in Bangladesh is an area of concern. You were aware of that Holy Artisan Bakery attack which happened in Dhaka in 2016.
Yeah.
So something like that could always be on the cards. And then there is a certain political party which has been playing ball with them. So
The
that is,
BNP.
yes, that is will be an area of concern for us.
And
But I think we have to be engaging all these stakeholders that are there now. That should be the way forward.
How do you see the elections in Jammu and Kashmir? What do you think? Do you think that the people of Jammu and Kashmir are excited, keen? You've been posted there. How do you see, democracy making a return there after 10 years?
I think it's a good step, man. I think it's a right step to be taken. They have been feeling quite deprived of the fact that they had no political say. So no matter which party wins, it's something good that is happening for Kashmir.
But there are also militants, former militants, who are making their way into the political system. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It actually depends as to why they entering.
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
Into politics in the first place. If they're the guys who feel they are reformed, then it is something good. But if they have an agenda behind them, then that's an area of concern. But I think most of them should be people who are the reformed kinds, and even if they have an agenda, I think our government is strong enough to take care of that.
In your career, you would have interrogated or interviewed or met with militants in Kashmir. You would have met with them in the Northeast. How are they different? In what way?
Most of them have had, I mean, this is, I speak largely, most of them have had, having spoken to them at lengths, they would have had some kind of a disturbed childhood. It had to do a lot with the environment in which they were brought up.
This is the commonality between the two.
ecosystem that they had, which was not very normal.
Huh.
Yet there are some other people who are quite educated, who had everything going for them, but then they decided to take up arms because they got into a social group where they felt that this is the way for them.
This is common
This
for
is
both.
this is something which runs common in both
And
places.
when it comes, what is the difference between the two?
Difference between the two, again, I said the difference.
Pakistan.
Yes,
Huh.
that is the major fault difference that lies between the two.
Okay.
And religious angle, of course.
Huh.
In the Northeast, nobody looks at religion as much as they do towards ethnicity. It's
Huh.
all about ethnicity,
Okay. Tribal loyalties.
tribal loyalties.
And that
Rel-
is supreme, right?
That is supreme.
That is above nationalism, above everything else.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So now when you say that, that they feel they don't like it when said Indian mainland and them, why are we different? Now, you don't see that kind of thing happening in rest of the country, maybe in some pockets where there are loyalties towards one's caste or regional loyalties, like a Tamilian will feel that I'm different. I'm Dravidian, not some Tamilians. Some say that we are Dravidian. We are not part
Yes,
of
yes,
the
yes.
rest,
Yes.
right? Because you're Hindi speakers. So there are these pockets that you will see. But in the Northeast, tribal loyalties are very strong, right? There's a subnationalism which happens out there. Is that a determining factor when it comes to integration with the rest of India?
It used to be at one point of time, but Smita, what you to see today is the large number of youth, diaspora of the Northeast, which is there in the services industry. You board any flight today, there'll be no flight in which there is no cabin crew who's not from the Northeast.
Northeast.
Correct.
You go to any city in the country, no hotel will you find where there is no kid from the Northeast. So all this is changing, subnational, and you try and interact with them. In Delhi, you go to any hotel, you'll find a Kuki and a Meitei kid working in the same hotel.
Yeah.
Just take time out when you go to any hotel next time. Just look out for them. Are they from Manipur? And then, to your surprise, you'll find that here they are perfectly fine. They are, to my mind, ambassadors of the Northeast. And since a large number of them are now going and seeing the rest of the country, they understand that all that is happening back home is irrelevant, is Stone Age for them. And that is what they tell. When I myself have interacted with these kids in Bangalore, in Mumbai, in Pune, in Delhi, they say we don't believe in what is happening there, and it's a sad state because our parents, our brothers, sisters keep telling us, you come back. But we are quite happy here, quite content here. And I think that's going to make a great change. The youth, the people, the diaspora of Northeast, which is here in the rest of the country.
Correct. And they speak the local languages also. Like you would have seen in Bangalore and all, they speak Kannada too.
Yes, they do.
Which is a little surprising. You just take back and say, huh? You know Kannada? And say, yeah, I'm from Manipur, but I can speak Kannada. That it's kind of fascinating.
Their soft skills are phenomenal.
Phenomenal. That's true. Anyway, on that note, I think we can conclude. Thank you so much, sir,
Thank you so
for
much. Thanks
explaining the situation. And here's hoping that normalcy returns to Manipur as soon as possible.
That's my hope and prayer too.
Thank
you
you
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for watching or listening to this edition of the ANI podcast with Smita Prakash. Do like or subscribe on whichever channel you have seen this or heard this. Namaste. Jai Hind. Click here to watch the previous episodes.